February 18th. I slowly raised my hands and gulped as the gun pressed into my temple. Every eye in the room was on me. You could have heard a pin drop. Then the man holding the gun spoke again. "Nobody's used that entrance as long as I've been here. Who are you with?" he asked. I wasn't sure how to respond. But before I could say anything, a door in the back opened, and to my utter surprise, the man from the cafe walked through wearing a sharp black suit, identical to the ones the other humans in the bar were wearing. He was buttoning his sleeves as he walked in, and he seemed not to notice the tension in the room at first. Then he glanced around, saw my predicament, and chuckled. "Well, everybody, sorry for my timing. I had to do a quick wardrobe check. Don't worry about Mr. Kelly there. I've been tailing him since he discovered us. If he were going to tell the world about us, he already would have done it." "Put the gun down, you twat," a British voice said from somewhere behind the man holding me at gunpoint. "You're clearly scaring the man." "Why'd he come through the front door then?" he responded, gesturing with the gun towards the door, which caused a brief scare. "No one comes through the front door." "Well, let's see what Agent Osborne has to say, why don't we?" the British man suggested, and we turned back to face the man who'd been tailing me. He put on a pair of sunglasses matching the outfit of everyone else in a suit, and cleared his throat. "This is Mr. Charles Kelly," Osborne introduced me. Much to my surprise, he caught wind of our location seemingly by accident a few months back, and ever since then he's been doing his best detective work trying to figure out what our deal is. When I let him onto me, I figured he'd either get scared or give up or risk it all and barge in. "That's a risk you were willing to take?" a woman asked from the same area as the British man, and I realized I no longer had a gun to my head. I relaxed a bit and looked at the group going back and forth with Mr. Osborne. There were 5 of them, 3 men and 2 women. 2 of the men were standing, one of them who had just holstered his gun, and a second who stood in the back. A thin, gangly man with a dark look on his face. "Don't worry, I talked with Danny beforehand," Osborne said, nodding to the bartender who handed him a drink. "The idea was, if he was willing to come in, he's the kind of person we're looking for." "You want to hire him?" the woman replied. "Off the street? Are you crazy?" "Tiva, if I weren't crazy, would I be here?" Osborne returned. "That's besides the point. The point is, he's in. He knows now, and if we turn him out with no answers, he's either going to keep coming back or tell everyone. We don't want to have to kill him." "You're going to kill me?" I exclaimed, then realized my mistake. No, I'm sorry, carry on." "Thank you," Osborne nodded curtly. "I'm not terribly opposed to the idea," the British man said with a shrug, and his group looked at him in shock. "What? We've got the job over in South Dakota. I don't see the harm in taking him along, if only to preserve the prosperity of this establishment." "South Dakota!" I exclaimed. "I can't go to South Dakota." "Well, we could always take you out back and put a bullet in you," Osborne mustered. "You're in this now, whether you like it or not." I sputtered for a moment and glanced around, but there was no help to be found in the eyes of the others. That's when I realized something. I had gone too far, just as I had feared, but it didn't mean I was going to get killed, captured, or tortured. It meant that I would survive as long as I could, that I was truly in. All eyes were on me, human and otherwise. I gulped. They had guns. Their threats were well-founded. I had no choice. I held up my hands and said, "Fine, you win." Osborne smiled. Excellent. I do hate killing when it's not necessary. He turned to the rest of the patrons and said, "Back to your drinks, everyone." The low hum of conversation returned, and Osborne approached me, putting his arm around my shoulder. "Well, now that you're part of the team, what do you say we sit down and get to know each other?" "Sure," I replied, nodding. I was beginning to warm up to this idea, especially when it compared to a bullet in the brain, and I figured I might as well get to know the closest thing I have to a connection here. He gestured to the seat in one of the booth seats and sat opposite of me. I glanced around, taking a good look at the interior. For the first time, it was very nostalgic with a rustic feel to it. Oak was predominantly featured as a material, and it was lit by candlelight from a few chandeliers and a few wall-mounted candles. The bar was the opposite end from where I'd come in, and there seemed to be an area cleared out in front of the bar. No tables or anything. To my left of the bar, there was a normal-looking door with no windows, so I couldn't tell what was on the other side. But to the right, there was a door marked kitchen. Above the bar, in the center of the room, was a sign similar to the one outside, with the image of a golden tooth, except on it read, "Established in 1959. All in all, it was a very atmospheric place, large enough to fit a decent-sized crowd, but small enough for it to feel cozy, and if not for the appearance of dozens of strange creatures, it would have passed for one hell of a normal bar. So, do they have anything to drink here?" I began the conversation tentatively. "I mean normal stuff, or is it just," I gestured at the creatures at the other tables, "unnatural drinks?" "You keep talking like that, you're gonna get yourself in quite a bit of trouble," he warned. "But yes, they do serve drinks you'd find at an outside restaurant." "So what is this place?" I asked abruptly as he called the waiter over. "Why can't anyone else see it? What are all these creatures? Are you with the government or something? I'll go over it briefly now, but I am a busy man. I've just spent the past 3 days following you," he pointed out. "I'll have time to explain everything if you survive the South Dakota job." "Is there a reason to believe I won't survive the job?" I hurriedly asked as the waiter arrived. "What is the job anyway? Come on, let's order," he replied. "I haven't had a meal that wasn't from a dreadful cafe across the street from your place in 2 days. I'm dying for a well-cooked meal." "Hey, I like that place," I muttered, but he already turned to address the waiter. "Yes, I'll have the Bun Bo Hue and a Coke, please," he said as I raised my eyebrows. "What's that, some sort of supernatural delicacy?" I asked, intrigued. "It's actually a Vietnamese beef noodle soup," Osborne said pointedly. "The chef's got a knack for it. It's delicious." I chuckled, slightly embarrassed, and ordered the same. Then I turned back to Osborne. "Alright, explain this all to me, will you? Who are you?" "I'm Agent Russell Osborne. I work for the Supernatural Protection Agency, where I've worked for going on 11 years, he said. "It's a fairly self-explanatory agency, as far as logistics go. So I'd say it's my turn for a question. You're taking this incredibly, almost suspiciously well. What's the deal with that?" "Am I suspicious?" I quickly asked, eyes widening. "I didn't mean to do that, I promise. I'm not going to tell anyone. It's just like you said, I'd rather be in than dead. I'm not—" Alright, it was just a question. You're not on trial," Osborne replied, holding up his hands in a mocking surrender. "I was just curious because you don't strike me as a very brave person, but with that reasoning, I suppose it makes sense." "I'm not a very brave person," I said indignantly. I'm no Bond, but I wouldn't say not very brave. Oh, but I would, he told me matter-of-factly. Alright then, what else do you want to know? My bruised ego forgot in the face of foreboding knowledge. I pondered what to ask carefully. What? Why are all these things here? And why doesn't the public know about them? I'll answer those in reverse, he began. These are supernatural creatures. Their origin is unknown to us, or known but unexplainable. Some pose a danger to the public, some don't. The public cannot know about either because of their nature. Let's use the aliens in the room, for example. If the public knew of confirmed extraterrestrial life, they would be pressuring the government for funding for space programs, for establishing intercelestial communication, for pushing out into the universe. As you might guess, there are many problems with that. Politically speaking, there would be mountains of red tape to cut through, jurisdictions and policies to avoid. It would be a nightmare, and it is much simpler to do it this way. The other, more important problem is that we don't know everything. These are creatures more powerful than any of us combined. There are creatures we don't know about. And if the public knew of the existence of some of them, they would seek out the others. We have no idea what could happen, so for now, it cannot be made public. As for why they're here, in this bar, they're non-hostile, as you can imagine. It's fairly difficult to establish a social life when you're, say, an 8-foot tall pile of gelatinous fluid, or when you're literally the devil himself. So this place, both for creatures to relax and enjoy themselves, and for those who know of their existence to speak freely. I paused for a moment, then let out a long, slow exhale. Whoa, I don't really know what to say. That's quite a bit to take in. It is, so let's not dwell on it. You'll have plenty of time to do that the next time you hear an odd sound in your apartment. So let's get to know each other, he suggested as the food arrived. And then the conversation turned much more light-hearted after that. We talked for just under half an hour as we ate, but as he mentioned, he did have some pressing matters. He also told me that the entrance I came through wasn't ever used. It was just there to throw off anyone who somehow saw the bar's exterior. And that the next time I came, I should come in through the back exit of a store around the block. I was going to follow him out, but the British man called me over to their booth. Wait a minute, lad, come speak with us, he said, waving me towards them. We're going in on this together. We owe you at least a briefing. Yeah, I'd appreciate that, I nodded, sliding into the booth. Well, we're heading out on Friday. We can arrange travel for you, and we'll arrive on location early Saturday morning. We'll have someone send the details to your apartment. From the airport in South Dakota, we'll make about an hour-long drive to the site. We'll spend as long as it takes to get the job done. Shouldn't be more than a day or two. Then we'll have you back by sometime Monday morning. Might have to tell your boss you'll be a bit late, but that's provided you survive the course. That's exactly what Osborne said. What do you mean, if I survive? I asked. Is it very likely that I won't? Very likely, he repeated with a chuckle, then looked around the group, who also laughed. The last rookie I saw go toe-to-toe with a Wendigo. His funeral's next Wednesday, and we're marching into a den of them. A Wendigo, a den of them. He died, I sputtered in surprise. What do you mean, like the Native American myths? Myths, the man who'd held me at gunpoint previously chuckled. They're about as mythical as Charles Manson. Sure, you've heard the stories, but just because they're stories doesn't make them any less true. That doesn't make any sense, you muppet, the British man shook his head. To be honest, you might just have delayed the inevitable. You're not choosing life, you're just betraying your odds. Ever so slightly, but hey, have a seat, I'll introduce you to everyone. I did, and after names were given, we started chatting, and I found out more about the group. The British man was named Edward Richards, the leader and founder of the group. The woman in the back left seat was named Frida. The tall, scary man standing behind them was Lawrence Kaczynskers. The woman sitting across from me was Tava Stewards. And the man who didn't seem to like me very much was Zafin Tolber. They were a group called the Outsiders, and they were some sort of mercenaries in the supernatural world, taking some of the more dangerous jobs for generally a lot of money. We talked for quite a while. I tried to steer the conversation towards the supernatural, but they weren't too keen on talking about it. Zephin definitely did not like me, though. I'm not sure why, but he's definitely got a bone to pick with me. After the conversation died down, I left through the back entrance Agent Osborne had pointed out to me, and I went back home. It was very strange going from a world of mystical, otherworldly creatures to one where the biggest worry was filing your paperwork on time. I didn't have much time to appreciate it though, as I was only 3 days away from an event that might potentially end my life. I have a lot to think about and a lot of sleep to catch up on, so I'm going to rest for a while. February 20th. The days have flown by since my last visit to the Golden Tooth. As much as I wished they'd slow, work has been a welcome distraction. But these hours at home alone, I haven't dared to go back to the bar. I don't know why, but it feels like I had just turned in my one get in to the bar free card. And if I wanted to go in again, I have to survive South Dakota. Not much is happening, but I'm guessing I'm going to receive the details about the job sometime later today, since we're leaving tomorrow. Sure enough, about 5 minutes ago, there was a knock at the door, and when I opened it, a manila folder with some papers, clippings, and photographs was there, unattended on the floor. It seemed like it was a habit for these people to do that, disappearing after knocking, but I picked up the folder and I'm currently going through it to see what I can get from it. The first 5 things were all about wild animal attacks that happened in the forest in South Dakota on the banks of the White River. Most of the newspapers claimed that the actual pictures of the victims couldn't be shown, as they were too graphic for publication, but photographs were attached to the clippings. They were graphic, alright. They were shredded to bits, all in different manners and methods, but I can tell it was done by the same thing. I won't go into detail, but yeah, it was messed up. The papers all claimed that it was by wild animals, which obviously is just a cover-up, and when I got past the articles, there was an important looking document. At the top, it said in big block letters, the White River Wendigo. Apparently, when they were first researching it, they had believed it to be just one Wendigo. But someone sent in a team and they were quickly overwhelmed by 2 full-grown ones. That's when the Outsiders, the name of the group I was temporarily joining, was called in. They had a rough location where the den was, which was a densely forested area along the banks of the White River, but not much beyond that. Also enclosed was my plane ticket, which was from a company I'd never heard of before, instructions for the trip, and a packing list. There were some more papers behind it, but I decided they would probably just be reiterating what I had already read, so I decided to focus on packing. It was mostly things you would normally take on a weekend camping trip: clothes, tent, flashlight, all the survival gear. The note had also said that weapons and other exotic supplies would be provided by the outsiders, but I've already been told twice it's pretty likely I'm going to die this weekend, so I don't want to take any chances. However, I don't have anything that could be remotely considered a weapon at hand. So tonight I'm going to run down and buy a few things at the local sporting goods store. Probably a multi-tool and a large knife, if you can even get one. I'm not much of an outdoorsy guy. I have some camping supplies from my dad, but I've never tried to buy anything, so I don't know what sort of regulations there are. I think that's it, though. There is not much else I can do other than wait. Hey guys, thank you for listening to today's Creepypasta, and I hope you enjoyed. I do have a podcast called The Murder House Radio Show. Check it out, the link will be in the description below. It is a true crime podcast. But if you did like, comment, and subscribe for more. Hit the bell notification when you subscribe and select all to get all notifications whenever I upload. I upload 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, at least one video a day. Now, all the long episodes in the full series of Creepypastas are on all major podcasting platforms under the name Deadly_Zone_Narrations, or search up Devin Clark. There will also be a link for it down in the description. Also, go follow all the social media accounts. They are in the description below. I do have a subreddit called Deadly Narrations. The link will be in the description. Also in the description below are the sources to the creepypasta and the music used, so go check those out. Let me know what creepypasta you'd like to hear next, or if you have your own you would like me to narrate. Or if you have a creepypasta series you'd like to hear, send them to me on any of the social medias in the DMs or to my email address, which is also in the description. Also in the description below is the author's social medias if they have any listed. But that's it for today's creepypasta. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time in the Deadly Zone, stay deadly and stay spooky.